What? What? Cookie? It's cookie time. Okay. It's cookie time. Because, you know, cookie time. Anyway. There we go. Okay. Cookie time for Shadow Facts. Hi. Hi. Hello, my gentleman. I love you too. Okay. Another cookie for Shadow Facts. And, all right, fine. We can't get anything started properly around here because you guys are crazy. Here. Here. All right. We're going to get started. Okay, one more cookie for you. I'm being bothered for cookies. We're just going to go with it because, you know, cookies. Because, you know. And I'm also now surrounded by chickens who know I have snacks, and the goat is figuring it out, and here comes a cat. Okay, fine. Welcome back to Andersen Acres. I'm Leanne, and this is Shadow Facts, and I have cookies, and he's not stupid. So he's going to be bothering me for the foreseeable future. Excuse the mud. It has been an incredibly rainy week. And hi. Hi, sweetie. Do you want one? Okay, come have one. It's cookie time. This is not going to go well. Hi. Okay. A little overwhelmed by the animals. Not overwhelmed, but yeah. Okay. It's fine. We're also going to, don't knock the camera. It's okay. Don't get out of my pocket. I don't trust you guys. Okay. I'm Leanne, and I love my goat, which is not the point. So we're here to, hi, it's the 4th week of the month. So we are here to talk about either a myth or a controversy. And today we're going to talk about a myth. If you joined me last week or you watched it in the replay, I know, so much mud. For some reason, I'm sitting right in front of the muddiest spot. I don't know why I chose this spot. Probably because I don't want to sit over there because all the chickens are doing their thing. Anyway, so if you joined me last week, we were doing our animal spotlight and we were talking about miniature horses. And since then, I've gotten a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of people wanting to know the same few basic things. And the thing that keeps coming up is, aren't they just small horses, young baby horses, or aren't they just ponies? So that was not unexpected, but I figured we would then talk this week about that particular myth, that a miniature horse is not its own breed, that it's just a baby horse. It is not, okay? Because I have had so many people in my DMs talking about, well, no, miniature horses are just baby horses. You just have to wait for him to grow up. He's 7, okay? He is 7 years old. He's not going to get any bigger. This is his size. and also cookie time. All right. Hang on. So other people were asking, well, wait, aren't they just ponies? Also no. Okay, a pony is not a breed. There are certain breeds of pony, but pony is simply a height classification. So I thought this would be a good time to tackle head on the idea that miniature horses are baby horses. They are not. I promise he's 7. He's a 2018 baby. Okay, and it's 2025 right now. Get out of my pocket. No. So, no, they are not babies. We're going to bust one of the most common myths I hear about miniature horses, and it's that one. So, we're also going to talk about how they're different from ponies, because the confusion comes up just as often as I thought they were just baby horses. Get your face out of my pocket! You crazy little baby bug! I know, you're crazy. So, okay, by the end of this live stream, you will know exactly what makes miniature horses unique, special, and definitely not just foals or ponies. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's talk miniature horses and goats. She's a fainting goat. So let's start with the myth itself. Why do people think that miniature horses are just baby horses? First of all, size. Okay? They're little. If you've never seen a horse foal before and then you see a mini, your brain may automatically say, that must be a baby horse. Add in movies, cartoons, and even jokes where goats are eating tin cans and ponies are just baby horses, and you can see why this sticks in people's minds. Why some people might think a miniature horse is just a baby. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a show or even just in the pasture and with my camera and someone comes up and asks, hey, how old is your baby? And I have to explain, actually, he's a full-grown miniature horse adult. He's 7. Okay, it's one of those myths that seems harmless but actually leads to a lot of misunderstandings about the care, purpose, and value of minis. So today we're going to take it apart piece by piece. Let's start by talking about the difference between a miniature horse and a foal. Okay? I have cookies. Just give me a minute. I have cookies for you too. So, difference between a miniature horse and a foal. You have to get your head out of my pocket if you want me to be able to get to the cookies in my pocket. Okay? A foal is a baby horse. Okay? Just like a baby is a baby human. A foal is a baby horse. You need to stop for a minute. You need to stop for 1 minute so I can get these cookies. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Oh, apparently we're taking multiple cookies. That's not fair. That's not fair to Shadowfax. Now he has to get a cookie. That was cheating. That was cheating. Anyway, so a horse has a baby, and that baby is called a foal. Now, it doesn't matter whether your horse is a thoroughbred. That's plastic. It doesn't matter whether your horse is a thoroughbred or a Clydesdale or a quarter horse or a miniature horse when that baby is born. It is still called a foal. Okay? No. 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 She's bad. So that foal will grow and grow and grow until it reaches its adult size. And that could be anywhere from 14 hands to 18 hands. Okay? It could literally be anywhere in that zone. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. You're nuts. I said stop it. You're being mean. Okay? Stop. Everybody stop. Everybody stop. Everybody stop. Okay. Anyway, so it doesn't matter. The foal grows until it reaches its full size. Whether that is 14 hands high, 18 hands high, or a mere 28 inches high. No. It is still a foal that will grow into an adult. Okay? No. And the size it's going to be depends on the breed of horse. So some things like the Welsh pony are smaller. Miniature horses are smaller still. And then you have the regular size horses like your thoroughbreds and your quarter horses. And you have, stop it. And you have your larger horses like your Clydesdales and your Percherons. All of them are called foals when they're babies. Now, a miniature horse is not a foal unless he's a baby, because a miniature horse is a full-grown adult horse that just happens to be small. Okay? He just happens to be little. So it's one of those things where, first of all, apparently we are going to steal more cookies out of my pocket. No. So breed registries generally say that a mini stands under 34 inches tall at the withers, which is basically where the mane hairs start on the back, where his mane starts. Stop it. Stop it, you crazy, crazy goat. Crazy goat. But that's less than 3 feet tall at the shoulder. He's only 28 inches, so he's very small. Okay, he's very little. But here's the key. That's their adult size. Thank you, Saruman. He will not get any bigger. That's how big he is. That's it. Okay? They don't grow into full-size horses later. Again, he's 7 years old. We're going to move this closer to me so you don't knock it over. Don't knock it over. Don't knock it over. Don't knock it over. Thank you. So they stay small their entire lives. They'll never get bigger than this. Okay? This is his size. So, sorry, just have to reset something. Thank you. Chicken. Chicken, because chicken. Okay, another big difference is their proportions. Okay? A foal's head looks big compared to its body. So when a horse is a baby, his head seems like it's too big for his body. That's kind of normal. It's not abnormal anyway. Babies always look like they are the wrong proportions, most of the time anyway. Same with horses. They don't look quite right because they're babies and they have to grow into their body. Okay? The legs are long and spindly on a horse when it's a baby and kind of awkward looking because they're built to grow into them. A miniature horse doesn't look like that. He does not look, he's not spindly. In fact, he's got a lot of good weight on him. He's got nice, strong legs. He basically looks the way he's supposed to look, right? He looks the way he's supposed to look. You're dusty, honey. Goes dusty. But minis look like tiny versions of full-size horses. They do not look like babies. They have balanced proportions that make them look refined rather than awkward. Awkward isn't good, okay? At least not in an adult. He is refined and elegant, and chompy. Yeah, stop stealing cookies, guys. So I've had people confuse Shadowfax with foals before, but when you put them side by side with a real foal, the difference becomes quite obvious. Okay? Hi. The foal is gangly, still figuring out how to move its body, while the mini is compact, balanced, and fully adult in both form and behavior. Okay? That's an important distinction. Hi, sweetheart. I know you're such a sweetie. You are such a sweetie. I know, but stop eating things. So, minis are not just foals frozen in time. They are their own fully developed horses, and they're adorable and beautiful in their own right. Now let's tackle the other half of the myth. Hi. Ponies are not just baby horses either. Mini horses are not ponies. Okay? Well, sort of. They're sort of ponies. Okay? Minis are not just ponies. Ponies are not baby horses either. Okay? That's an important distinction. A pony is a category of its own. Okay? It is any horse that is smaller than 14.2 hands tall. Okay? So if your horse is smaller than 14.2, it is by definition a pony. That means that technically, sorry, I don't have a cookie, so I'm not allowed to touch you. He's like, get away. Fine. But, hi. Yeah, you're good. But there are some specific breeds of pony that are not just small horses either. Okay? Now, these ponies will have a distinct body type. They are stocky. They're quite stocky. Pony breeds are stocky. They have wide chests, short legs, heavy manes, and tails. And they were originally bred to survive in tough climates, and they are hardy working animals. So if you have a pony that is a specific pony breed, then yeah, that pony breed could very easily look like a pony instead of a smaller horse. But you can also be a quarter horse and also be a pony. If you happen to be only 14 hands high, you're a pony. So it kind of depends a little bit. And there's water blowing off the trees at us, so we might move over there. Yeah, we're going to move that way. But I'll keep talking as I move the camera because, you know, moving the camera is a thing. So, ducks over here. We're just going to go over here where I'm not going to get hit by the water. Duck, 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 duck. Duck, duck, duck. Duck, duck, duck. So you can have ponies that are true ponies because they are a pony breed, and you can have a pony that is only considered a pony because it happens to be smaller than its breed standard. Both are fine. Both make you a pony. Okay? Both of those things make you a pony. And that's completely fine. So, it's raining. It's raining over there, not over here. We're fine over here. Anyway, let's not worry about that. But ponies are still fully developed horses. They're not babies either. Okay, a baby horse is not a pony, it's a foal. They are their own fully developed adult horses in their own right. They are not just a baby horse. Pony is not the right word for baby horse. Okay? Now let's tackle the other half of the myth. The idea that minis are just ponies. Okay? We're going to move again. Sorry. We keep getting hit by water. We're going to move again. We're going to move over here. Don't worry about it. We're going to move again. We are going to move over here. I'm going to go get my chair. But the other half of the myth is that minis are just ponies. Now, minis are, by definition, under 14 hands high. Okay? Absolutely, they'll be under 14 hands high. That's literally what a miniature horse is. Okay? They are under 14 hands high. For good reason, they're little. They're a mini, right? However, ponies aren't baby horses, neither are minis. Minis are technically ponies in that they are short, but they are not a breed of pony. I know that sounds confusing. Ponies are definitely their own category of equine, okay? Miniatures are completely different than ponies, but they are still technically a pony. So I know it sounds confusing, and it does get confusing. And miniature horses look like small versions of a standard size horse. That's just what they look like. They are shrunken down versions of a standard size horse. Okay? In fact, that's part of their breed standard. For a miniature horse, they're supposed to be a full horse in miniature form. That's literally what they're supposed to look like. Okay? Miniature, but look like the big guys. They're little, but they look like the big guys. If you had no frame of reference, you could easily mistake a miniature horse for a full-size horse if you didn't have anything to compare size. So if you were just looking at a picture of a miniature horse with the background deleted, you could be forgiven for not knowing if that was a mini or a larger horse. That you could be forgiven for that. So their bone structure, their heads, their overall look is completely different than, say, a Shetland or a Welsh pony, because they are their own breed. Historically, ponies were working animals, pulling carts in the mines, carrying heavy loads, serving as tough little mounts. Miniature horses, on the other hand, were more companions, novelty, show animals. Yes, they were a little bit used as mounts for the nobility's young children, and then later they were used as money ponies to pull carts out of the mine because of their small size. But generally, they were show. They were for show because they looked different. They were an oddity. They're not an oddity anymore. Today, they are used in therapy programs. They can be trained to drive carts. They can be shown in fun shows, or even trained as service animals. So they are not just a pony. They are their own breed in and of itself. And once you learn to spot the difference, you won't confuse the two again. But if you're not familiar with a miniature horse, you could be forgiven for saying, well, that's just a pony. No, they are their own breed in their own right. And ponies, some of them are their own breed in their own right. For example, Welsh ponies or Shetland ponies. They are their own breed as well. So just because you're little doesn't make you a foal. It doesn't make you a baby horse. Now that we put those myths to bed, let's talk about what miniature horses actually are and why they are so special. Minis are intelligent and personal, and they're versatile, and they can be trained to pull carts and navigate obstacle courses and even compete in shows. Many are used in therapy settings because they're small enough to fit in hospitals and nursing homes, but still give people the joy of interacting with a horse. You wouldn't want to take a full-size horse and take it to a therapy program. You wouldn't fit. Okay. Some can even be trained as guide animals, similar to a service dog. I actually went to school with somebody who had a service horse instead of a service dog. They're great for mobility assistance because they can handle heavier loads and help pull things better than a dog can. Now, on the farm, miniature horses are wonderful companions. They're hardy, they're funny, and they've got big personalities in small packages. They're not a starter horse for kids, though. They require the same kind of care and training and respect as full-size horses. Again, they're fully fledged adults, not babies. But for people who love horses and want something manageable, they're an incredible option. They're also just plain fun to have around. We moved over here because it's wet over there, by the way. Now, personally, I adore our miniature horse. He is cheeky and clever and keeps me on my toes. And no matter how many times someone mistakes them for foals or ponies, I just smile and get another chance to explain how unique they really are, because they are not baby horses, okay? You can't treat them like a baby horse. They are fully fledged adults and need to be treated like a horse if you want a great companion, which is what most people want in a miniature horse. So that just about wraps up, not the live stream, we're sticking around for a little bit, but it does wrap up the main part of the live stream. We're going to transition into the Q&A. And I know so many people have commented they watch it in the replay. That's why I have a whole bunch of questions that you guys gave me last week and the week before. If you do have questions and you're watching on the replay, you can tune back in next week or the week after, and I will gather up your questions and answer them if possible. So I am going to read off my questions here, and hopefully I got your question. If I didn't, mess with me again. I tried to get as many of them as I could. So I know most people watch this on the replay. Send me your questions. I'll get them in. So question 1, are miniature horses just dwarf horses? Dwarfism is a genetic condition in horses that can cause multiple health issues. Miniature horses are selectively bred to just be smaller horses. They are small but good proportions. So if a miniature horse has dwarfism, they are ill proportioned. Okay, and that horse would not be bred and generally wouldn't have a very long lifespan. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind as well. And yes, it is raining. It is raining. That's okay. It is absolutely raining. We may have to move into the gazebo, and I know we've moved multiple times, but it's raining, and we'll see how long the rain sticks around. Anyway, next question. How big do miniature horses get? Most are under 34 inches tall at the withers. Some registries, like AMHR, AMHA only allows up to 34. Shadowfax is 28 inches at the withers. Do miniature horses ever grow into full-size horses? Absolutely not. They cannot grow into full-sized horses. It doesn't happen. They are fully fledged horses already, okay? They are not babies. So a miniature horse that is 2 is never going to get, hi DK, cat's coming. But a miniature horse that is 2 years old is never going to get bigger than he already is. What's the difference between a pony and a mini? Ponies are stocked and built for hard work. Minis are proportioned like small, full-size horses. Can kids ride miniature horses? Usually, okay, no. Minis are too small to carry much weight. They're better for driving. They're better for pulling, showing, or companionship. Do minis eat less than a full-size horse? Yeah, but yes, they do. Quite a lot less, actually. But they still need proper hay, proper minerals, balanced nutrition. They're not just an animal that you can just feed like scraps to. If you are going to get a miniature horse, you are still going to have to get proper hay, and you might need a ration balancer, and you're still going to have to feed them like you would feed a regular sized horse. You just feed them less. Can minis live outside like full-size horses? Yes, they prefer being outside. They do not like being permanently stalled. Now, you may have to stall a miniature horse if they are ill or if they're injured, sure. But in general, miniature horses should be kept outside with access to adequate shelter. They need a fence so that they don't run off and injure themselves or get lost. But yeah, if they have proper care, proper fencing, and proper housing, they do prefer to have consistent access to the outdoors. Do miniature horses get along with big horses? Usually, I would supervise the introduction if the miniature horse hasn't been around large horses, or if the large horse hasn't been around minis. I would supervise that introduction. But in general, yes, fine. Okay. In general, they will eventually learn to get along. Just supervise the introduction at first. Are minis more affordable than for full-size horses? It's really raining. We are going to move while I answer that. Are they more affordable than full-size horses? Yes, they are definitely more affordable than a full-sized horse. We're just going to go into the gazebo. We'll be out of the rain. But a full-size horse in my area will run you between $2,000 and $3,000. And that's not a fancy full-sized horse. Okay, that's not a fancy full-size horse. That's just your standard full-size horse. That's, you know, a grade horse. That's not a horse that you would consider a show horse or a particularly fancy horse. That's a horse that you would consider kind of ho-hum, right? Not that any horse is really ho-hum. Horses are all majestic, all perfect, all wonderful. But they do cost a pretty penny. Even a cheap horse, larger horse, even a cheap horse will cost you quite a bit. A miniature horse, so example in my area, large horse for $2,000 to $3,000 on the cheap end. A miniature horse you can probably get $400 to $500 on the cheap end. Now, there are always more expensive options. Okay, so a registered show quality horse will always cost you more than a grade horse that you're just getting for a companion. But you will always pay more for a large horse of the same quality as you would for a mini. Okay, because miniature horses are quite a bit cheaper because they're small. But they still require vet care. They still require farriers. They still are horses. They still need all the care that a horse needs. I'm just going to raise the camera up because we're in a different chair. But they still require all the stuff a horse needs. So you still have to feed them. You still have to vet them. You still have to do their feet. So they're not that cheap, okay? They'll cost you more than your dog will in care. How long do minis live? They can live quite a long time. I would say the average lifespan of a miniature horse is 25 to 35 years. Some can live longer. Some have lived into their 40s with really good care if it's a really healthy horse. Do miniature horses have health problems? like any animal, of course they do. They have their own unique health problems that if you're going to get a miniature horse, you should become aware of. Um, you might want to watch out for obesity, dental problem, obesity because their metabolism is different than a big horse. They can have dental problems, and that's because they have the same number of teeth that a full-size horse has, but their face is smaller, right? Their whole head is smaller. So sometimes there can be impaction at the back, and that might have to be seen to by a qualified vet. Um, Poorly bred horses that are not screened could end up with dwarfism. If you have the wrong cross, two horses with dwarf that carry the dwarfism gene, both pass the dwarfism gene down, now you have a problem. But with good breeding and good care, miniature horses are surprisingly healthy and hardy. So any animal, any human has their own share of health problems, and you can never promise that this certain animal is going to be healthy. But in general, yeah, they're pretty healthy guys. Are minis recognized as an official horse breed? Yes. They are their own breed in their own right. They even have their own registries. In North America, we have AMHA, which is where Shadowfax is registered through, and we have AMHR, which has two different size categories, up to 34 inches and up to 38 inches. In AMHA, they have to be under 34. Can you train a mini horse like a big horse? Yes. In fact, you should train your mini very much in the same way you train a large horse. They are still a horse. They have all the horse needs and all the horse instincts and all the horse desires. So you should treat your little guy like you treat a big guy. So when it comes to training, you're not obviously going to train him to ride him on a trail ride, but you can do groundwork. You can teach him to pull. You can teach him to do obstacle courses. You can do a lot of the stuff that you do with the big guys, just not the riding part because he's too small for you, obviously. So yeah, lots of training is very much the same. Do miniature horses need shoes is a question I was asked. Usually no. Okay, most miniature horses are kept in environments like on grass or on sand or on dirt where they do not require actual horseshoes. If your horse is spending a lot of time on like really hard ground, like you're talking like a lot of concrete, a lot of gravel, they might. Talk to a qualified farrier who can tell you whether your horse should go barefoot or have shoes based on the condition. Most minis don't wear shoes. They don't need them. And there will be some cases where a horse needs shoes for medical reasons because the way their foot grows or whatever, are recovering from a foot problem. That could be an issue. But generally, no, miniature horses don't wear shoes. But get yourself a qualified farrier. Talk to your farrier about where you keep your horse, how you keep your horse, and whether or not your mini might be the exception and might need shoes. Can minis pull carts? Yes, and they really love to have a job. So many are trained to drive and can pull carts proportionate to their size. Obviously, they wouldn't pull the same size cart that a full-size Clydesdale would pull, but generally they can pull up to 3 times their weight. So if your horse is 200 pounds, he can pull comfortably up to 600 pounds. That would be including the cart. So if the cart is 100 pounds, and you could have a couple of people in the cart, and that would be his maximum weight. You wouldn't want to exceed 3 times his body weight when it came to pulling. Are minis good therapy animals? Yes, they are smart and they are willing to please. So they're used in hospitals and schools and nursing homes because their small size makes them ideal for going into these places, and they have a very gentle nature, especially if they are raised from young to do this job. So they are aware that they can't nip and they can't bite and they can't kick and stuff like that. So yes, they can make very good therapy animals if they are trained appropriately. Do minis require less care than a big horse? No. They still require care from a qualified farrier. They still require vaccinations and dental care and proper feeding. The only thing they require less of is space. Excuse me. They require a little bit less space. They don't require less in the way of vet care or farrier care. You're still going to need to do all those things. So are they easier than a horse? No, they're just smaller. You will spend less on feed and you need less area for him to exist in because he's smaller. But otherwise, A lot of the stuff is very much the same. Yes, there are some differences. So if you've only had big horses and you want to get a mini, you should learn about minis before you get a mini. But make sure that you are giving them the same standard of care that you would give a large horse. Are minis dangerous? How dangerous is any horse? Okay. In theory, yes, they are small, but they're still horses and can kick or bite if not trained or handled properly. However, they're also fantastic creatures. Okay. They are wonderful and loving, and generally, if you raise them well and you give them some very basic training, they are lovely animals who wouldn't hurt a fly. Unless that fly is driving them absolutely crazy and is biting them, and then they're going to smack it. Other than that, they're generally very gentle creatures. Do minis bond with people? Yes. Shadowfax is very bonded to us, especially to my son Tristan. They can be very affectionate and form really strong bonds with their owners. So if you are going to get a mini, know that once they're bonded to you and you're bonded to them, it is going to be very hard to be apart. So you need to know that getting a miniature horse is a long-term investment. You're going to have him around for a long time, and you're going to fall in love, and he's going to fall in love with you, and it's a long-term thing. How much space does a mini need? They need less pasture than a full-size horse, but they still need to be able to move and exercise. They need to be able to get up speed and run and have a great time. This is all very important. So you're not going to have them in a tiny, tiny little yard. You are going to make sure they have a pasture big enough. Even just a small run is okay, as long as they can get up to full speed. Okay, they need to be able to run and roll and they need to be able to be a horse. So you need to provide them with enough space to be a horse. You could keep a miniature horse on a quarter acre or even less, as long as they can really move. Are miniature horses good with kids? They can be, if they're taught to be. So just like any animal, if they've never seen a kid before, don't expect them to immediately be good with kids. Okay? Minis are not toys. They're horses. They're not toys. So if you want your miniature horse to be good with children, then you're going to want to make sure you teach your miniature horse to be good with children. Okay? What do minis eat? Mostly hay, grass hay, preferably. They generally don't need a bunch of alfalfa. Grass hay plus minerals if they need it. If your hay is not balanced, you also might need a ration balancer. So generally, you're good with a ration balancer, good quality grass hay, and possibly some minerals depending on what the ration balancer might be missing. But Shadowfax just gets his grass hay. He grazes on our grass every day, and he gets a ration balancer. They're easy to feed. They're not necessarily cheap to feed, but they're easy to feed. Your local feed store will have a ration balancer, same ration balancer that you use for a large horse. You just feed them less of it because they're smaller. Generally, on the bags of your ration balancer, it'll tell you how much per kilo or per pound if you're in the States. So yeah, they're easy to feed, not necessarily cheap, but still easy. Can minis be house pets? Very firmly, no. Miniature horses do not want to live in your living room. Even if you could make it work, even if you could put boots on them so they wouldn't damage your floors, even if you could house train him, he will not be living his best life if he's in your living room. Okay? Miniature horses need to be outside in the sunshine and the fresh air, and they need to be running around on the grass and rolling in the dirt. They don't want to hang out in your living room while you watch TV. So they are not appropriate house pets. They are not a dog. I know sometimes we call Shadowfax puppy, but he's not a puppy. They need to be outside rolling around in the dirt because that's what they're born and bred for. They do not do well trapped inside your house. So please don't try to make your miniature horse a house pet. Please respect the fact that he needs to go outside and have plenty of fresh air and exercise. How do minis compare in intelligence to full-size horses? they're just as smart as a full-size horse, sometimes even more so. They are crafty and they are clever and they're going to get up to all kinds of nonsense. They will start to understand the words you use. They will recognize the sound of the front door opening. They do know all of these things. They are smart and sometimes too smart for their own good and your own good. Are minis easier to keep than goats or sheep? So we also have goats. This is a judgment call. They're small, but they're still horses. So are they easier than goats or sheep? That entirely depends. So maybe. Are they? This is a maybe because it depends. Are you good at looking after goats and sheep, or are you good at looking after horses? Because we have goats, their needs are different. So it's going to depend on what you are more comfortable with. So they're still livestock, just like goats, and they still need to be outside, and just like goats and sheep. But they do have different requirements. Like you're going to need to make sure your goats have copper, but you want to make sure your sheep don't, and things like that. So it's just a different type of care. It's not necessarily easier. I wouldn't say that goats are easier or sheep are easier. I would just say they're different. So be familiar with the care of the animal you are going to get before you get it, so you are well aware of what to expect. Do miniature horses get along with other animals? Most of them will. Shadowfax likes his goats and he likes his dogs and his cats and his chickens. Most miniature horses do very well with other animals of various sizes. You just need to make sure you introduce animals well so that they are used to each other before you leave them by themselves. Also take your own horse into consideration. So Shadowfax is afraid of other horses, so he can't live with a big horse or another mini or even a donkey. Other equines scare him, and that's for very good reasons. He was quite bullied in his last herd, so he's just not comfortable with other horses. He prefers his goats and his dogs and his cats. So generally, yes, they are great with other animals. Just make sure you accommodate your mini and his needs before your own. So if your miniature horse does not like goats, don't try to make him live with goats. Can you use miniature horses for riding lessons? Generally, no. Very, very small children could ride a miniature horse, but generally, by the time your kid is big enough to really understand riding lessons, they're too big for a miniature horse. So you might want to get them a pony to start with. Very, very, very small kids, like 4 and under, can sit a mini horse and not hurt him. But, you know, your 7, your 8, your 9-year-old is too big for a miniature horse. Get them a pony or a small horse. How do minis handle winter? Very well. We get 40 below here, and Shadowfax handles winter really well. He is perfectly happy to exist in the winter. He is easy to handle in the winter. He grows this really woolly coat in the wintertime that keeps him warm, even in 40 below. They still need proper shelter and proper care, extra food in the winter because they have like an internal furnace that needs to keep going. And that internal furnace is fed by hay. So they need constant access to hay, which they should have anyway, regardless of the time of year. But yeah, they handle winter really, really well, even better than the big horses. We have never had to blanket Shadowfax. He likes to stand outside in the snow in 40 below because he's Shadowfax. So they handle winter very well. Can minis be pasture pets? Yes. They make a perfect pasture pet as long as you are willing to provide them the right food and proper care and occasional vet and farrier care. Yeah. Are minis expensive to keep? They cost less to keep than a full-size horse, but they still require vet and farrier care, and you still have feed expenses. So they're cheaper than a full-size horse. They'll cost you more than your dog. Do minis get overweight easily? Yes, they are prone to obesity. you have to be careful with their diet because they gain weight quickly. So pay attention. That's why Shadowfax is not allowed to graze as much right now because he's a little bit chonky for his size. He needs to lose a couple of pounds. So he's not hanging out on the grass all day because he's getting a little bit too chonky and needs to control his snacking. So you do need to be on top of the obesity thing because they do gain weight really fast, and obesity can lead to a bunch of metabolic problems. So just try to keep them not skinny, but you don't want them to get chonky. Are minis a new breed? No. Miniature horses have been around for centuries now. They are 400 years old, I guess. Maybe a little more. Around the 1600s, I believe. They've been around for quite a while. They are not a new breed. And they are fantastic and easy to look after. They are easy to care for if you are caring for other livestock. They are not more difficult than other livestock, and they are not new. So they were originally selectively bred in Europe because they were little, right? You could breed for them to be little, and they could be the nobilities' children for their kids, basically. And later they went on to be mining ponies in North America. And all of that has taken centuries. So they are not a brand new breed, okay? They have been around for a very long time. And I would not consider them new at all, okay? There are much newer breeds of horses that have come around in the last 150 years, and miniature horses are older than that. So they're not new. They're just not as well known. They're becoming much more well known now than they used to be, but no, they're not new. They are not new animals, and I hope they'll be around a long time because I find miniature horses fascinating. And with that, I actually have to get going. Again, Fridays are a really busy day for me. I would love to push the live stream back later in the day, but I know most of you catch it on the replay anyway. So I am going to get going and feed the horses, one horse. I'm going to feed the horse, and then I am going to have to get going because Friday's very busy and I have to pick up my brother. He's coming to spend the night. So we're actually very busy. So I'm going to get going. And if you are watching this on the replay, drop comments below or send me questions on Facebook, and I will include them in future live streams. So that's going to be about it for us here today. I'm glad you popped in. We are live every Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock Central Time in North America. So I'm not sure what time that is for people watching the replay, but we do our best to answer some questions, and hopefully those answers help you. Anyway, that's going to be about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow. And we just have to click some buttons.